Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, Ash.
I was waiting for you to start the thing then, realizing I just thought, you're only going to start this, or am I going to start it? It's always an awkward one in these, which is good, by the way. It shows that we're human, but it's always an
I
awkward
know.
because I'm the guy that coaches you how to do it. So it's like, I was thinking, I didn't say that. So anyway, welcome to season 2.
Oh, thank you very much. I know. I can't believe it. Season
I,
2 is all about to start.
and now we're really excited. And
Mm.
how did you find season 1? Let's talk about that one first before we dive into what we're going to do today.
Yeah, I mean, it was all new to me, wasn't it? I'd never done anything like that before. So it was really, really exciting, but quite nerve-wracking. And I think, now we're getting further into it. It's just becoming more natural to do. It's just part of your diary. So yeah, I'm still really enjoying it. Sticking at it. It's good fun. People are wanting to take part. So yeah, it's great.
I really enjoyed the show. For me, as someone at the back end, like kind of sorting it all out, I thought it was really, really good. The people you interviewed, if they watch this one again, like I thought they were really interesting. Really,
Yeah.
really interesting. A real broad scope, especially someone here like I'm from Cambridge, and you guys are up in Yorkshire, learning about different areas. I found that really, really interesting, which is really, really cool. So I'm really excited that we're back here for season 2.
Yeah, me too. And I think they've all been really surprised as well because, during our initial chat, some have been like, oh gosh, this is a bit nerve wracking. But as soon as you get into it and you start talking, it's just natural. You're just having a chat, aren't you? So they've all been really surprised about how comfortable they felt throughout the interview, which is good to hear.
I think often people with our conversations, people overcomplicate it, and it is just conversations
Yeah.
with people. And I think when you put it in a system like this, and it's visual, and you give it a name like a podcast, and all of a sudden we go but the reality is it's not. It's. I mean, in a nice way, but that's what I mean. It's
Yeah.
lovely that you can bring people in and expose them to it. I think it's a really cool idea. So what do we have in store? What's the kind of goal for season 2? I mean, with what we've got coming, we've recorded some already when we're doing this. So what can people expect from season 2? And just a taste.
Yeah, so we've got it's more varied season 2 with the people who are being interviewed. So that's exciting. I've got some things that people might not know too much about, so it's quite a learning curve for people to learn more about. And also the industry is going through some challenges at the moment, so it's kind of highlighting those challenges. And I suppose it's more a flip of what's going on for us right now. So maybe clients can be aware of what we're facing as well. So it might make their journey a little bit easier.
No, I love that. No, I think it's an interesting one. That's what today's episode. Obviously, it's the first episode back. Want to talk about, and as you said, I'll guide you through it. We said at the beginning, you said, "Can you guide me through it so that we know what people do and don't want?" But it's this whole market. It was you that wanted to talk about this whole shift. There's this. I feel like I work with many mortgage advisors across all over the country, and it's a different world than literally. I don't know if you feel like that, but it feels like an entirely different world than it was even like 8 weeks ago. The
Yeah.
whole thing has changed. So,
Yeah.
what would you say, just for an overview, like because what we want to talk about is like what is kind of happening. Can you explain, in a nutshell, what is actually happening, or from what you're seeing is happening in the Yorkshire area, really? Because that's the most important thing. We can all look and go, and I am sure people listen to this have this all the time. You hear, every time you hear property news stuff, it's always about London. It's never
Yes.
it's like, oh, these house prices are rising, and then it's like in London, and it's like about the rest of the country as if it didn't exist. So, what is kind of happening in the Yorkshire space with mortgages, property purchases? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so house prices have been continuing to rise. I think there has been a little bit of a dip this month, but I think this is August. But I think that could be because the demand has dipped a little with it being school holidays and people are on holiday wanting to spend time with their families. But we're still seeing high property prices. not too many properties up for sale. So that then creates a larger demand. So there's quite a lot of buyers fighting for one property, which can cause some upset. And we are seeing properties going above asking price. The agreed price is sometimes above asking price. So it's a different market to what it has been previously.
How are you finding that then, with it going above asking price? What's the kind of census on valuations right now in your area? Are you seeing lenders, obviously majority, like you obviously know specific cases, but are you seeing people like lenders valuing it up? Because I always find with stuff like that, the issue when we start to, as you all know, is when we start getting into this price war and bidding wars, this market, like where we're in, and I think it's very much across the country, but it's interesting where you live in that kind of Yorkshire, it's very like Yorkshire Triangle, isn't it, what they call it? And it's very like well known.
Yeah.
And it's quite expensive actually for where it is in the area where it is. And there's got to come a point where the lenders are going to sell. There always comes a point where the lenders go, no, that's ridiculous. We're not going to do that. Have you started to feel like you're hitting that ceiling yet, or are lenders a lot of the time still letting it value up?
Yeah, I think valuers are maybe getting a little bit nervous now, and I suppose they're entitled to feel like that because this increase has just gone on and on and on and on. You would think, as the general public, that at some point that would have to stop, and property prices would have to start to decrease again. So I think my impression is that valuers are starting to get a little bit nervous. Majority of valuations are fine, but on the odd occasion we are seeing that things are getting downvalued, purely because I think there's these bidding wars going on, so things are getting a little bit out of control. I think when you're bidding for property, you still have to have a ceiling price in your mind of what you're willing to pay, and I think with a lot of people, the heart can come first sometimes, and that's purely understandable. We've all been in that situation. You find the house that you love, nobody else can have it, you need to have that house, and it gets a little bit out of control, and I think that's why we're finding that valuers are getting a little nervous.
I think they do get nervous. I've seen it in different markets and areas I've worked before, and it's why just a curious question. I'm when I ask you these questions, why I love doing these episodes where I get to speak to you, because so people can learn about you, because I get to ask questions I'm genuinely curious about because I love property in the industry. So it's very interesting. I think one thing I'd love to hear your take on, your opinion on this and your thoughts on this is where I live, essentially very similar to what you're saying, is this idea of everyone is going, it's got to crash, it's got to end, it's got to slow. And we've been saying this for years and it's never happening. And I can't see it. And I was speaking to someone recently about this saying, I can't, and obviously we can't predict, but a lot of these people are saying these words out there. And every person I've met who's gone, it's going to crash, I'm going to wait for the crash, I'm going to wait for Brexit to crash it, I'll wait for this to crash it. And every one of them has been left with houses that they could afford a 4-bed, now they can afford a 2-bed. You know, it's like it's getting to that point. Are you seeing a similar thing there where it's like I can't see it crash happening, even though, and obviously we're not predictors and it's not advice, but it is that thing of like I can't see anything really changing. Do you feel, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel that things are quite unpredictable at the moment, so like you say, it is difficult to call. I think that what I've noticed in the last few years is that a few things that I've been reading in the general media, it's actually gone the other way. So when COVID first hit, I was reading in some newspapers that house prices were going to fall. There's going to be a crash. People were uncertain. People were losing their jobs. And actually, in this industry, we noticed it completely different. House prices were rising. And it still are. So, like you say, it's an uncertain time. It looks like maybe they will continue to rise, but like you say, it's a difficult one to call. I don't think we've experienced this before. What's going on in the industry. So it's a strange time.
is an interesting one, and I think so. How are you finding? And I know we as you are a mortgage advisor, we can't give exact advice, and I'm going to or we can't give advice, and we also you can't give rates or anything like that. But how are you finding the impact of the? We've got to talk about the cost of living crisis. I don't like using the word crisis because I think that's, again, like you said, media. I know with me, the more I say it, the more my anxiety goes up, and the less. Let's talk about cost of living, but also, but really the most important is like interest rates and the base rate being risen. How have you seen that affect where you are locally in your market?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I love about this role is helping people. All the best mortgage advisors out there love to help, give advice, and ultimately find the best possible solution for their client. And what is frustrating me at the moment, which is just part of the role, is unfortunately people are coming out of their fixed deals, and because there has been a rise in the interest rates, we can't always be able to offer them, the same kind of rate. And that's frustrating. So, we are finding that there was a time when it was very exciting. Practically everyone you were speaking to were like, I'm going to save you this amount of money on your mortgage. But unfortunately, it's not like that at the moment. So it's a difficult time. It's a difficult time. I can't remember what your question was.
No, and that's not bad. No, because that's a really good thing. Because I actually think it is an interesting thing. As someone being an ex-advisor myself, it's a thing of like, I remember like it would be like, yeah, you've remortgaged, and now it's so much cheaper, and being very much not at the forefront with customer facing, but obviously working with people in this, I've noticed the change. So I think it's something that is interesting to talk about with regards to the increasing rates. Now, one thing that you said you wanted to speak about, and I really would love to talk about this, which is because I think it's a very important message, is that you said you didn't want to come on here and talk about doom and gloom. You wanted to make sure people understood the situation, and it wasn't maybe as scary or as thing as people are saying. What would be your, can't say it's not advice, but what would be your kind of take if someone was asking you like, well, about what's going on right now, and they are in that media crisis, as I said, mindset?
Yeah.
What would be your kind of thing? What would you say people should really be thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think people do have to be mindful that they may have to pay more on their mortgage if their rates are due to expire shortly. They do have to be mindful of, obviously, there has been a increase in the cost of living, energy prices, and maybe just putting a budget planner in place to think, right, okay, if our mortgage is going to increase and, we're now paying this on our gas and electricity, let's just see where we can just cut back a little bit, maybe one less takeaway or, something like that, just to make sure that you're not going to be too scared by an increase if there is one in your monthly payments. It's making sure that you're cutting back on things you can cut back on, and maybe just being a little bit mindful of your money. We're all doing it. I think everybody's sitting down and saying, right, okay, we used to put this much money into our account every month, and we used to have this left over, and now that's not there. So hang on a second, what are we spending our money on? So I think it really is just being mindful of what are you spending your money on? Is there anything you can cut back on a little bit? And just be cautious, because there may be a rise, and if there is a rise, you've dealt with it already just by cutting back on bits and bobs.
And it's a wonderful that advice, not advice, but that experience, that you just said, that it's actually something that's really that me and my wife have had to do, and not. I agree, and we haven't been hit with a pinch yet. So to give people context, because I think our situation is similar to a lot of people's, is we got 2 years left on our mortgage, like fixed. We're not 2 years left on our mortgage. Gee, wow, amazing. I think it's like 38 years left on that. No, but 30, 3 or whatever. But 2 years left on our fixed deal, so we're not like I was like, don't panic, we're fine in that. And we're very lucky to have our energy fixed until purely by fluke, by the way, till
You
February.
told me this story before.
February, and this is for people to understand, so that would make sense. I think what you're saying. But one thing that me and my wife did talk about was we were like, you know, we could go, it's okay, it doesn't bother us. But come February, it's going to hit, and then we don't know where it's going to be in 2 years. I'm not so worried about the mortgage, so to speak. It probably will. I'll deal with that when it is. But the cost of living and the bills and everything else and all of that stuff, we are looking now. Where can we reduce our spending so we can have that money ready, so our lifestyle doesn't have to change when it does flip? And I think that stuff is not being spoken about enough. And so I completely love what you just said, is that it is just looking at little things. You know, our thing, we just monitored our spending for two months.
Yeah.
And we were like, wow, we don't need those things. And it's just little holes in a bucket that are leaking just a little bit, but we can tighten up. And I think and that's definitely what you just said. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely couldn't agree more.
It's things like a lot of people do, and we do it as well. So I'm just popping to the shop for milk, but then you come back with milk, chocolate, cereal, cake.
It really stacks up, no joke. Like, and with that, and that is where that cost of living rises are getting hit. I think is with people with finance, because it's that a shop that might have only been, say, even like £9 is now like £17, and that's when you're like, oh, wait a minute though. Like, Jerry's, and I spend a load of money. You know, I'll go, we're walking down Jerry's, and I'm like, it's like £7 a pop now in the shop. How do I quickly spend 20 quid in a shop?
I know.
And some, and like maybe like some crisps, and you think, wow. So that's where I think, as you say, it's being more mindful of those things. And that it's not as doom and gloom as you think, just maybe not as much sugary things.
I think so. And, you know, I think we've had a really lucky time in terms of rates. You know, they have been very low. And we do have to remember that even though they are rising, you know, the rates are still good, even though they're not good compared to what we're used to. So I think it is just having that in mind as well. Nobody wants to pay more. Nobody wants to pay more. If you're used to paying a certain amount and now you have to pay more, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to pay interest. But I suppose it's just having in mind that it's still not bad. You know, hopefully it will be manageable for people if they prepare for it.
Yeah. And I think that's the best way to do it. So let's wrap this up. But like, any parting words for about season 2 that you want to say to people, or anything you want to do?
Yeah, I just think listen out. There'll be, like I say, there'll be a couple of episodes that you may not have been expecting, and it's really exciting to see where this is going. I'm already planning season 3 for the new year, so it's not gonna stop anytime soon. But yes, season 2 is really exciting.
That's brilliant. I'm really excited for season 2. I'm seen some of them already, so awesome. All right, let's roll it out.
Thank you, and thank you for helping with season 2.